Okay, so you know those parts of ancient texts that are just lists of names? The kind you usually skim right through? Well, today we're going to tackle one of those. It's a genealogy from the book of Genesis, and I promise you, it is not as dry as it looks. Hidden inside this short passage is a secret timeline, a really surprising character portrait, and even the story of a nation's rise and fall. Seriously. So let's get into it.
So here's the mystery we're trying to solve. You've got a list of names, 12 sons, and a number, their father's age when he died. That's it. It looks pretty straightforward, almost like an afterthought. But what if it's not just a record? What if it's actually a key? A key designed to unlock totally different puzzles somewhere else in the story. The real question is, how do we even begin to find the lock it fits into?
Okay, so our story starts in the book of Genesis, chapter 25, and it begins, pretty formally. It says, "This is the line of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's slave, bore to Abraham." So right away, the text is setting the stage. It's reminding us exactly who Ishmael is in this epic family drama.
And here they are, the raw data, if you will, the 12 sons of Ishmael laid out in birth order: Nebaioth, Kedar, Abdiel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jeter, Naphish, and Kedma. I mean, it's a list. On the surface, it's just a list. But remember, the real secrets aren't usually in the list itself, but in the little details hidden all around it.
Right away, the text tells us that this number, 12, is a big deal. These aren't just 12 kids. Nope, they become 12 chieftains of as many tribes. And if you know anything about these stories, the number 12 should set off some alarm bells. It's a huge signal, right? It immediately makes you think of the future 12 tribes of Israel. So this is telling us, hey, pay attention. We're watching the founding of a major nation here. And the text gives us this little snapshot of what their society was like. It says they lived by their villages and by their encampments. Now, this is where a brilliant medieval scholar named Rashi comes in. He looks at the original Hebrew and points out that the word for villages suggests open towns, without walls. So you get this cool picture of a people who had both these secure, maybe nomadic encampments and more permanent open settlements. It's a small detail, for sure, but it's another hint that there's more going on here than meets the eye.
And then we get this little factoid almost thrown in at the end. Ishmael lived to be 137. It just feels random, right? Like a footnote to wrap up his biography. But here's the thing. That number, 137, is not random at all. In fact, it's our first huge clue. It's the piece that tells us this passage is doing way more than just listing facts. And this is the question that just cracks the whole mystery wide open. Rashi comes along and asks something so simple, but so profound. Why are the years of Ishmael enumerated? I mean, why bother telling us his exact age? Why this specific number? And suddenly, with that one question, our whole perspective has to shift. We're not just reading a list anymore, we're investigators trying to figure out what the author was trying to do. And the answer is just, well, it's fascinating. It turns out the reason for this number has almost nothing to do with Ishmael himself. It's all about his nephew, Jacob. This boring list of names is secretly a tool, a chronological key, designed to solve a puzzle in a totally different part of the story. Okay, so check out how this works. Rashi does the math and figures out that Ishmael died in the exact same year that Jacob had to flee from his angry brother Esau. Now, the book of Genesis says Jacob went to his uncle Laban's house, but there's this weird gap in the timeline. It doesn't quite add up. So Rashi uses Ishmael's death as a kind of anchor point, a pin on the map. And he calculates that Jacob must have spent 14 years studying somewhere before he ever showed up at Laban's place. And just like that, this seemingly random detail about Ishmael's age fills in a huge missing piece of Jacob's story. It's amazing. All right, so Ishmael's life story helps us figure out a puzzle in Jacob's life. Cool. But that's not all that's hidden in here. Not by a long shot. The text uses these very specific, very subtle words to paint a picture of Ishmael's character. And honestly, it's a picture that might really surprise you. So when it describes Ishmael's death, the text says he expired and died. And again, Rashi notices something incredible. He points out that the specific Hebrew word used for expired, vaigava, isn't just any word. He says, and I'm quoting here, this expression is only used in the case of righteous people. Wow, think about that. The text is quietly, subtly telling us that Ishmael, a character who can be pretty controversial, died a righteous man. One single word totally changes how we see his entire life.
Okay, so just when you think you've got this all figured out, the very last verse throws a total curveball. It talks about where Ishmael's descendants ended up living, but the way it's phrased seems to completely contradict a prophecy made about them earlier in the story, and that sets up our final puzzle. So here's the problem, plain and simple. An earlier prophecy said that Ishmael's descendants would dwell alongside their relatives, live there, be established. But this final verse says they fell alongside their relatives. And in the original Hebrew, these are two totally different words, yishkon versus nafal. So what gives? Did the prophecy just not come true, or is there something deeper going on here?
And once again, it's Rashi who comes in with this just beautiful, elegant solution. He says, look, it's not a contradiction at all. It's a timeline. The choice between dwell and fell depends entirely on a single massive event, the death of the family patriarch, Abraham.
So here's how it works. Rashi explains that as long as Abraham was still alive, his influence and his merit kind of acted like a shield protecting his whole family. During that time, Ishmael's kids did, in fact, dwell securely. But after Abraham died, that spiritual protection was gone, and their fortunes fell. So the change of a single word tells this whole epic story of a nation's security and its decline, and it all hinges on the life and death of one man, Abraham. So let's just pull back for a second and look at what we found in just a handful of verses. We found a chronological key that solves a mystery in Jacob's life, hidden in Ishmael's age. We saw a single verb that paints Ishmael as a righteous man. And we watched the story of a nation's fortune change, all based on the switch from the word dwelling to falling. It just goes to show, nothing in this text is just filler.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? We started this journey with what looked like the most boring kind of passage imaginable, a list of names. But just by asking, why is this here, we unlocked all these incredible layers of meaning. It really makes you wonder, what other boring parts of history or literature are out there, just waiting for someone to look a little closer? What other secrets are hiding in plain sight?